Hey, this is Jeff Karras, your behavior guy. I'm back. So yesterday we talked about the value of a 5-point scale and how to use that. Today we're going to talk about kind of the setup of that. A 5-point scale, and I'll post a visual for you guys to see, but it's something that should be made with the child, with the student. So what you're doing is you're talking about what is the issue you're trying to address. So let's say we have a child who, when something doesn't go their way, they get angry, and they get very, very angry, and you can just see that anger build, and they kind of explode and lash out. Or let's say there's a child who's just very anxious in a social situation, and they run away from that situation, but there's some kind of telltale signs leading up to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to craft that scale around those feelings. So when you see the visual that I post, it's going to list how they feel for each one of those levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? With 5 being where they kind of have that major behavior. The goal of the 5-point scale is to try to help them understand when they're getting there or where they feel. Sometimes they can't describe it to us. So as their emotions are building in any age child, it's hard to put that into words. So this visual allows them to have something that they could point at. This is where I feel, without even saying a word, so you know where they're at, and then you know how to help. Because if they're at a 1, the intervention or what you do is going to be different than if they're already at a 4. If they're at a 4, they're going to need some intense support and intervention to try to de-escalate that situation. So this helps us identify where they're at, and then you make this with a child when they're in a good space, in a calm space, because then you talk about at each level, what do we think is going to help them? Also, you might have a child who doesn't want to point to the scale and keep that visual. So what they might do is give you a hand signal, and just by having that visual right there to look at for them, they might tell you 2. I'm at a 2 right now. That way they can give you that signal. So talk about these things when setting up this process with your child or with your students, because that way ahead of time you know what the expectation is. They know what their job is when using this to tell you where they're at. You know what your job is to help them when they're at one of these levels. So that is how you're going to create this. That is how you're going to utilize this scale. And then eventually you can wean them off of it, and they might not need it, or they might not even need the visual. But at first, they're definitely going to have that visual somewhere easily accessible. So if it's hanging in your house somewhere for them to go, if it's in a folder that they carry around school, a folder during the house, they're going to need it. But eventually we're going to wean that off. All right, I'm going to post some visuals of a 5-point scale here coming up on my Instagram, my Facebook, but I'll post those very soon for you. This is Jeff Karras, your behavior guy. I'll see you later.